If your goal is to learn a language as a self-learner, it is definitely more challenging compared to being followed by a tutor or a teacher. There are struggles such as keeping your motivation high, finding materials, and knowing where to start basically, or how to continue. Hi, welcome to the channel, or welcome back. My name is Paulina. I'm a language teacher. I teach Italian and English, but today I'd like to share my journey of self-learning French. And while doing so, I will share some materials, content, and what I truly find useful. These things are keeping me motivated, and I'm not giving up, and I'm actually super excited about what I'm doing. So let's start off by explaining what my level is, just to give you some context, and why was it very difficult to start again. I am what is called a false beginner. I was a false beginner. As you know, when you start a language and you start from scratch, you are a beginner. So you don't know anything about it, you don't know about grammar, vocabulary, sounds, nothing, nothing. This is an example for me if I think about Russian. I am a total beginner. I know nothing about Russian. But if I consider French, I've studied French when I was 11. Then I stopped, and then I started when I was 18 at university, or 19. Then I stopped again. When I was starting again, I wasn't a beginner, because I knew already about structure, sounds, some vocabulary was quite familiar for me. So I was a false beginner because I wasn't very confident with what I knew, but I knew something. The first tip I'd like to give you is get as much input as possible. When I was studying French in the past, I had that meeting, that lecture, 1-2 hours per week, and stop. Whereas now I'm curious, I'm genuinely curious, and I want to surround myself with the language. I watch content, I try to listen as much as possible, I read as much as possible. Input is very important because it gives us structure, models. I try to surround myself with French content, so I follow, for example, on Instagram, this page, which is incredible because it shares the news. I'm always so interested in the articles they make, the reels they publish. It's so interesting. There are always subtitles. The topics are intriguing. There are sometimes biographies, curiosities, modern topics discussed. And then I try to follow YouTubers who share lessons, vlogs, they describe French culture, and getting that in my feed helps me a lot because sometimes maybe I'm deciding which video I'd like to watch, and instead of watching an English video about productivity or an English video about 2025 and resolutions or any financial tips, I try to watch it in French. My level is an intermediate level. I'm not a total beginner. So I managed to understand lots of it. Also, lots of it is still Greek to me. I've noticed that the more input I get, the easier it is for me to recognize the sounds, the patterns. And I don't stress too much over it, to be honest. I am genuinely curious about the topic. One tip for this is I choose people whose purpose is to teach. So for example, I'm never watching the news in French. I wouldn't be capable of understanding what's written in an article because it's too difficult for me still. I watch content, I listen to podcasts that are aimed at students, at learners. And changing the language, the phone's language, it helped me a lot. Télécharger, partager, couper. These are all verbs that I remember from the phone because I always share something, I always cut something when I edit, I always have something to download. In general, I find it so useful because I can understand what's written in French. I connect it to the meaning that I know because I use the phone all the time, so it's quite intuitive. Finding course books. From my personal experience, even as a teacher, I never want to stick to one course book because there is a topic and it could be handled in a specific way in a book, I always want to see that same vocabulary, that same topic, that same grammar structure with more examples, with more contexts. What I've tried to do basically is finding course books online. I'll also probably purchase a printed course book, because I feel like with printed books, with paper books, and with manual writing, I'm so much better. And in general, I try to find course books which are a similar level. So obviously I'm aiming at a B1, B2, so I'm aiming for those books. I found these which have been helping me a lot, and they also have different purposes, because one is focused more on vocabulary. I try to get also listening. I try to get some oral kind of input. So I go on YouTube and I try to find some videos about that topic. So I try to surround myself with that kind of knowledge, with that kind of terminology, with those words. French grammar is easy and difficult at the same time for me, because I speak Italian. You know, the devil is in the details, and I make stupid mistakes, but they're absolutely fair to make, because I too often times compare the languages. So I also need a bit of grammar structure, because it helps me practice and also trying to avoid Italian structures applied to French. I would also love to get my hands on the Assimil. Little update, I got it for my birthday. I received it. I'm so excited. Doing what you like. And that's why I follow creators, and I try also to watch their vlogs. I'm passionate about their stories. I was watching 2 days ago a video about a girl, Nelly. She's an incredible teacher. And she has different kinds of videos. And she was just going to a fromagerie. Basically going in this video to a shop which sells cheese, and she has a conversation with the seller, with the clerk, and then she basically tastes and tries different cheeses. And that was so interesting for me, because I love cheese and I love food. And when people talk about food, for me, it's very, very catchy, and I'm passionate about it. It was also my job, so I also get this sense of interest, and that's how I basically learned a lot of English. You can't ignore the fact that when you watch something you're interested in, it's more intentional. You just listen to the language, you're interested in understanding what has been mentioned, what has been said, and if you like it, you'll continue watching it. Not because it's a chore, but because you're genuinely curious. And the more you proceed with this, I believe that the secret here is to find the right materials. If you're good with searching for good materials, half of the job is done. Then you just watch, you listen. And eventually that vocabulary, those words will come back again and again as you start from high frequency words. And there are words that you'll encounter in different contexts, in different situations, used by different people. So you'll keep hearing those words, and eventually in all different contexts, it starts to make sense. When there was this cheese shop video, the clerk would often say, c'est puissant. And I understood from context that it meant something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't like, because he was always careful. And then I understood that it's strong, it's a potent, strong. And with speaking, I still have a lot of work to do. I've been extremely proud of my progress with listening and with understanding. If you're curious about how I do that, how I practice speaking without any teacher, without any other person, I've made an old video here. I'm going to share the video so you can see what I've done. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon in a future video of mine. Bye!